Welcome to NYNJPA Weather, your weather source for the Northern Mid-Atlantic. I'm your meteorologist, Stephen DiMartino. We had a very active severe weather night last night with heavy rain and strong winds, and it looks like we're setting up for another major rainstorm on Saturday. First, I want to start off with the water vapor satellite picture as of 10 a.m. And what I have marked here in L is our 700 millibar low, and that's important because when the 700 millibar low is over or just to the east of your location, or should I say just to the west of your location, that usually means you're in what we're called a dry slot. That's where air is sinking between two areas of rapidly rising air. I have circled in yellow the two areas of rapidly rising air. One area is over Long Island and much of eastern Connecticut, where they're receiving heavy rain this hour. And the other area is over central and western Pennsylvania, where another area of moderate to heavy rain is also developing. This 700 millibar low will move right over the New York City and Philadelphia metropolitan areas, leading to pretty much a break in the precipitation. I can't rule out a few scattered showers, but for the most part, the heavy rainfall is over. As you can see on the latest radar as of 10 a.m., we have one area of moderate to heavy rain slowly exiting out through eastern Long Island and eastern Connecticut. This steady heavy rain will continue to move into southern New England, and much of Long Island and Connecticut will finally get into the dreary but dry break that is setting up over much of the Philadelphia and New York City metropolitan area. Meanwhile, the area of precipitation, mostly rainfall, over central Pennsylvania is going to continue to move through northeastern Pennsylvania and towards the central Hudson Valley. I do not expect the majority of this rainfall to move through the New York City and Philadelphia metropolitan area. However, I can't rule out a few scattered showers as we continue on through the early afternoon hours. Once this batch of precipitation over central Pennsylvania exits to the northeast, that is pretty much it with the rainfall, so I'm expecting clearing skies by this evening. Here's our surface map as of 10 a.m. and as you can see, our surface low is moving over northeastern Virginia and will eventually move into New England as we move into the late afternoon and evening hours. The high pressure system that is currently over central Canada will eventually take hold throughout the entire northern mid-Atlantic. I'm expecting clearing skies by this evening through the overnight hours, and high pressure is going to remain controlled through the end of this week into the first part of this weekend, providing dry, tranquil, and much warmer weather conditions for the region. We move to Friday evening. This is the surface map from the European Model Guidance via the Penn State eWall website, an excellent website for model data. Now, what we have here is an area of low pressure that is rapidly developing over the Mississippi River Valley. This low pressure system is going to become a major storm for much of the eastern United States and the plains. But the track is towards the central Great Lakes, and that's important because that means the majority of the lifting and the heaviest precipitation will likely be focused more to the northwest and west of the northern Mid-Atlantic. Still, this storm is going to pose some significant threats for very heavy rainfall and strong winds. The good news is that the high pressure system that is going to be slow to depart over New England is going to keep the rain at bay for much of the day on Saturday. I don't expect the rain to come in until Saturday evening. When it does, it will be heavy, but at least the first part of Saturday will be dry and rather warm with temperatures in the 50s and 60s and possibly lower 70s if enough sun breaks out. This is the surface map for Saturday night, and you can see how tight the pressure lines are. These are packing of isobars. Now, when you see the isobars packed like that, that usually is a signal, actually it's always a signal, of very strong sustained winds over those locations. And those locations happen to be the New York City and Philadelphia metropolitan areas. Now, what I'm expecting is basically sustained winds from the southeast, anywhere from 15 to 30 miles per hour. The gusts, though, is pretty much what I'm very concerned about, because what we're dealing with here is what's called an occluded front, which is basically means that you have a warmer air mass aloft, you have a cooler air mass at the surface, and then you have the cold air mass coming in from the west at the upper levels. Now, this type of complicated frontal system, and I gave pretty much a generic definition of this type of front, can create what's called elevated thunderstorms. And these elevated thunderstorms can produce wind gusts over 50 miles per hour within the band of heavy rain. So what I'm expecting on Saturday night is a solid band of moderate to heavy rain with embedded thunderstorms to move from southwest to northeast over the northern mid-Atlantic. The rain will start on Saturday evening and continue on through early Sunday morning. The band of rain is going to be able to produce pretty significant rainfall rates, and I would not be surprised if rainfall amounts by the time this storm exits exceeds an inch, possibly 2 inches of rain, depending on how intense this rain band is. As far as the winds, again, look for gusts over 50 miles per hour, and if you do not have to travel late on Saturday night, I would strongly suggest just staying in, because this rain event looks like it's going to be as impressive, if not more, than what we saw last night. And if anyone was driving last night, you know how nasty it was out there. So use some caution on Saturday night. The good news is that most of the day on Saturday will be dry, and by the time this occluded front lifts north with the low pressure system, much of Sunday afternoon will be rather nice as well. In fact, temperatures will be warming into the 60s behind this occluded front as air rapidly sinks. This is the 500 millibar pattern by Sunday night, and I wanted to show you this because notice the pattern from the west to the east. Well, basically the height lines move from west to east. This is a zonal pattern. So what we're going to be expecting moving into early next week is a storm track that is going to remain to the north of the northern mid-Atlantic, and also, more importantly, Pacific air will basically run from the west coast all the way through the east coast, and Pacific air tends to moderate very nicely and leads to some rather warm temperatures. So it looks like we have the potential, if the storm track stays far enough north, that we end up in a rather warm and quiet pattern, especially compared to what we're dealing with now. But the key is that this storm track has to stay further north, and we can't have any of these disturbances like the one that's entering the west coast try to pull another cutoff low, which are very difficult to forecast but tend to create a lot of havoc this time of year. And you can see at the surface on Sunday, high pressure starts to take control with clearing skies and warmer temperatures. We jump to Tuesday night and notice that our area low pressure over the plains is moving to the northeast towards the St. Lawrence River Valley. That means we are in a warm flow ahead of this low pressure system. Now, there might be a cold front boundary hanging around the northern mid-Atlantic by early next week. We're going to have to keep an eye on that. But if we are to the north of this boundary, and so far all the guidance shows that we are, that means we'll be in a rather warm air mass with temperatures in the 60s, possibly lower 70s, and dry conditions. Now, if this stationary front hangs around New York City and Philadelphia, then we basically end up in a cloudy and cool weather pattern once again, with a risk of a few scattered showers. So where exactly the storm track sets up and where the cold front / stationary front actually sets up for next week will have a great impact on exactly what type of weather we'll see moving into early next week through the middle of next week. Thank you for trusting in NYNJPA Weather as your weather source for the northern mid-Atlantic. I'm your meteorologist, Stephen DiMartino. Have an excellent day.